Oh man, I'm still laughing. I can't control it. Oh man, that was hilarious. Oh, I'm watching the LDS Church's General Conference, and it's going on in the background if you hear a little muffling noise. The, oh man, oh, the church is hurting so bad. It's so sad and pathetic. Oh man. Oh, if you aren't watching, if you're not a Mormon, oh, oh man, oh. President Nelson, the new president of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, just got up and canceled church. Oh, man, this is hilarious. He canceled church. Unbelievable. I can't do this video. I can't. Oh man.
Behold, thy brothers murmur, saying it is a hard thing which I have required of them. But behold, I have not required of them. For it is the commandment of the Lord.
This is just hilarious. Oh my goodness. Oh man.
They did lay their hands upon me. Behold, they were exceedingly wroth, and they did bind me.
I may have to come back when I calm down. Oh man.
Inside and in despair, Joseph cried out, "O God, where art thou?" No doubt some of us have felt as Joseph did. Everyone faces hard things. Death of a loved one, divorce, a wayward child, illness, trials of faith, lost job, or I was forever changed upon hearing these words of Elder Rasband.
If you're familiar with my videos, if you're familiar with the church, and you're familiar with April Conference, in April Conference, President Nelson canceled high priests. It's only for administrative leaders now, and so all elders can no longer obtain the high priesthood. And they used their Mormon Doctrine and Covenants to justify canceling the high priest group. And I've been posting and doing videos about how, oh man, about how the LDS scriptures actually point out that you can't be exalted in the highest degree of the celestial kingdom in the Mormon afterlife without becoming a high priest. The temple itself, they leave out high, but it's understood as being a high priest when it's the Melchizedek priesthood priest, whereas the Aaronic priesthood priest is not a high priest. And so then the Book of Mormon also confirms that you have to be a high priest, and even the Book of Abraham confirms you have to be a high priest. Oh man. But now, Nelson has canceled church. Not for those who already have church, but for all future churches. Those who don't have a church will now never get one. Oh, it is just hilarious. Which, it means the church is not growing at all, and they're probably shrinking. And, because if the church gets big enough in an area, with the number of conversions, baptisms, they build a church so that all the people can gather together and be unified and be one. And so Nelson he canceled it. We're not foreseeing any building of churches anymore in the near or who knows how many years in the future. And it is confirmed by Elder Cook of the 12, who Nelson had announced the actual plans, that it is God's will that he cancel church. So, in the Mormon mindset, the president of the church speaks for God, gets revelation from God. It's God's church. He leads it, runs it through his president of the church. And according to Mormon theology, God just canceled church. Yeah. Oh boy. Wow. So let me go over some of the notes that I have from the statement. Nelson started off by placating, pacifying, flattering the members, which in the Book of Mormon, if you flatter, if you pacify, if you deceive, you're using Lucifer's tactics. And that's exactly what President Nelson did when he said, "We feel your prayers." Well, what if all the members of the church forgot to pray for the leaders of the church? What if that happened? Because there's no way to know if there were actual prayers for the leaders of the church. We'd have to go to each and every single household, each and every single day, to listen to their prayers, if they're vocal, to verify if that's the case. If you ask a member, they'll say, "Oh yeah, of course I did." But you know, when they're faced with that kind of questioning, they have to say yes. And so there's no way to establish if people are actually praying for them. So if nobody prayed for the brethren, what does that mean about President Nelson's statement, "We feel your prayers"? It means he's a con artist. He's pulling a con job on the members. It is a common tactic in the world to say those kinds of things, to promote people's remembrance to do those things in the future. And it's sort of like a guilt trip that you put on people. And so those in the audience, or those listening to President Nelson, who didn't pray for the brethren, are supposed to now feel guilty for not having done so. And then there's feeling. We feel prayers. There's no way to feel prayers. That's not Mormon doctrine. That's not in the Book of Mormon, not in the Joseph's Doctrine and Covenants. That's nowhere. That's a new doctrine that has emerged now. And it was enhanced with Elder Cook as well in his discussion and rambling on of the excuse and justification for why they're making this change to cancel church. Oh man. So yeah, you don't feel prayers. No. Prayer is communication with God, not to God, because Christian prayers are to God. You tell God what you want to have done, because God does not communicate with man directly through still small voices in your head, and it then becomes all a feeling. I feel God's presence. So then there's no way to prove it, and nobody can challenge it and question it, and it becomes a useless argument, because nobody can do anything with it. And so it becomes useless, and it's a vain thing for people to use as an argument to shut up other people, to not, challenge their belief, their faith. And that was a big focus in that, with especially Elder Cook in his justifications. They want to increase faith. Have they forgotten about the Book of Mormon? It's not about faith. It's not about strengthening faith. It's about turning the seed, which is the word, through faith into testimony, which is fruit, physical results, fruit. And so, like if you're an architect, you'll get inspiration to design a blueprint. And you then have to believe that the blueprint is good, and you then have to do the works, action, to draw it all out, or if you have a computer program, do it on the computer, and the finished product is the fruit. And you can find out if the blueprint is good, meaning that the inspiration that you got is good, by a actual building of the structure that you just designed. And as long as the construction workers build it according to the blueprints, as perfect as they can, that will determine whether the blueprint is a good plan or not. And that's Mormon doctrine on faith. And if you noticed, they never once, not from Nelson, not from Cook, mentioned testimony. It was all about faith, and they used the word conversion, because that is a new doctrine that is coming around, conversion. They are dismissing testimony and replacing it with conversion. Now, any farmer can tell you, if you don't plant a seed, the seed will eventually convert. It will die. And it may sprout if you don't plant it, like a potato. It'll sprout when it goes bad. But it will not produce fruit. And it dies. And that technically is a conversion of faith. If you don't plant the seed and produce fruit, which is a conversion process, but the result is a testimony that the seed is a true seed and produced the desired result, which was fruit. And so the church is now dismissing that altogether. They're coming up with a whole new doctrine, and it's hilarious, because they're blaming God for the changes, for the canceling church, and it's so sad, so pathetic. And then you have Nelson closing with saying, "I know Jesus Christ lives." He just declared a new doctrine of faith alone, without works, and he's claiming that Jesus inspired him and is running this church, and says that he knows he lives, which means he is declaring that he physically saw Jesus. And if Jesus didn't inspire him to cancel church, if Jesus didn't inspire him to change Jesus' doctrine of faith leading to testimony, a witness, then it wasn't Jesus who appeared to him. And Jesus didn't appear to him. If somebody did appear to Nelson, it was somebody other than Jesus. And so what Nelson did in conference at the pulpit was declare himself as a false witness. 10 Commandments, thou shalt not bear false witness. President Nelson of the church just bore false witness to the world. There you go. That's how easy it is to destroy the church. They do it to themselves. And it's just sad. So pathetic. Okay, so the new changes for those who already have church is they're canceling a whole hour of church. That's the big news. So they're still going to have sacrament meetings for those who have a church building to go to. And it's going to be 60 minutes instead of 70 minutes. And then 10-minute break to get to the classes. And now the final 50 minutes are going to be split between Sunday school on the first and third weeks of the month, and Priesthood and Relief Society on the second and fourth weeks of the month. And then when there's a fifth week, the bishop will get to decide what to do for that 50 minutes. And I wrote a scripture study manual. I know exactly what's required to study the scriptures. The church does not study their scriptures. They only read. And any person or member of the church who claims that they're studying their scriptures, they're lying to you. Because those of you who have gone to higher education and are doing research reports for your classes, you don't just summarize a book. You've got to actually do research. And the church does not promote research. That is not the study that they're referring to. And they suppress pursuing study and research. And so the letter from the member in Brazil who was a part of the test program, he was just blowing smoke up the brethren's you-know-what to fluff piece the whole thing. Just hilarious. Just like Trump, when he does a rally, the people behind him are specifically placed there to show loyalty to Trump. And the guy the previous month who was making faces, and then a woman came to replace him because they don't want somebody making faces behind Trump. Everybody must be loyal. And so he was replaced, and just hilarious. And so, yeah, that's the focus now. And then Elder Cook rambled on and on about, oh, this is to strengthen faith, and it's strengthen families, and blah, blah, justifying back and forth. This is going to make Mormons dumber about the scriptures than ever. Because 2 weeks of a month to study the scriptures, that means they're redoing the manuals. The manuals already pick and choose what they want from the scriptures. They don't cover all the scriptures. And it's only what the church wants members of the church to understand and learn. And so members of the church don't learn everything from the scriptures as a result. And now they're cutting it back even more, which means even less information from the scriptures. And that's going to dumb down the Mormons even more than they've already been dumbed down. And so that's not a good sign. Let's see. Family Home Evening was also announced. It no longer has to be on Mondays, but the church will still not have the buildings available on Monday. But families can now determine which day of the week they want to have Family Home Evening on. And if families aren't doing it in the first place, they're still not going to do it. And they'll just be more justified in not doing it. And so, yeah, families aren't going to study the scriptures. I mean, in my family growing up, my parents struggled to get us to participate in just reading the scriptures. There was no study in our family. And oh man. Yeah. So yeah, that's it. That's the big news. Jesus cancels church for the Mormons. Oh man. Oh, if this continues on, there will be no church left to do anything. That means that the church is hurting financially. That's the only explanation, because they build according to the number of baptized members, and more baptized members means more tithing to build buildings. So if they're not getting members, they're not getting tithing, they can't build buildings. That's what it means, and that's what they're not telling us. So this is just hilarious. Last April conference, that's when they revealed this member statistics, and they changed it. They no longer announce it in April conference. You have to go to the website. And I went to the website, and lo and behold, the church lost members. The membership number went down. We were not converting people, and we couldn't compensate for the number of children in the church who reached the age of 8 years old to be baptized that way. And the church is hurting. They're falling. They're burning down in flames. Oh, it is so sad. And yeah, I'm gonna update you on the next announcement that Nelson will most likely make. But there's no priesthood session this conference. But who knows? Maybe he'll change Relief Society so that there's no presidency for the Relief Society. Oh man, this just gets better and better. Yeah, I'm surprised the guy following Elder Cook didn't ramble on praises of how great this new system is, but he's a 70, so he didn't know about it. Yeah, I expect the apostles to flatter and pacify Nelson about what a great idea this was and how truly God-inspired it was and blah, blah, blah. Just like they did in the April conference for taking away the priesthood from men. And oh, man. Okay, so I'll get this posted and go on to the next one if anything else comes up. Man, this is just hilarious.